Levack Goz, 104.5 The Team, your home for New York Yankees baseball. We now go out to Boston Globe. Pete Abraham with us, nice enough to help us make sense of the beginning of the second half of the season. What's the feeling like for Boston Red Sox, for their fans, for everybody out there? Do they worry about the Yankees at all after a 2-2 split?
Well, I think had they been able to win, one of those games, and maybe got 3 out of that series, they would have been able to put the Yankees in the rearview mirror a little bit, but the Yankees are, Tampa Bay really is the team that's given them a lot of trouble. They played well against the Sox, and they're only 3 games out. And Kevin Cash has gotten a lot out of that team. I think more than people expected they would. They've actually added some players. So it's you kind of came into the season thinking the American League East was going to be the Red Sox and Toronto and maybe Baltimore, and now it's become the Red Sox, the Yankees, and Tampa Bay.
We're trying to find out the American League teams that are likely to make a move. We know that Houston's really good, and the Yankees have been talking about making moves. How about Boston? Are they going to be active at the trade deadline?
Well, I think they do need to do something, and whether it's going to be a bullpen guy, whether it's a third baseman, I think there is going to be stuff that's going to happen. And Dombrowski has never been a guy who's sit pat at the trade deadline and just not take advantage of opportunities. So I do think you're going to see maybe not a big splashy move like he's made in the past at the deadline, but certainly something that can improve what he has now, which is a pretty good team. I mean, they have the second best record in the league, so it's not like they need some kind of full revamp. I think they just need to kind of tweak some of the parts where they could use some help.
The one thing I've noticed, Pete, is that the bats seem to be slightly quieter than what I expected them to be. Is that just me, always fearing the Boston bats, or did you guys know, as the insiders, that Boston wasn't going to have the same, powerful lineup they did usually?
Yeah, well, it's a different kind of team without David Ortiz, that's for sure. And just by you take away a guy who's going to hit 35 home runs and drive in 100-some runs, it's going to be a different team. They steal a lot more bases than they ever have in the past. They've actually bunted a few more times, which is something the Red Sox never do. So they're scoring runs. I think they're 4th in the American League in runs, but it's a different kind of offense. More doubles, more speed, more taking extra bases, more taking chances on the bases, which is something they never did with Ortiz because you didn't want to leave first base open and have somebody walk them. So the way they score runs is a lot different. They think that it's going to be a better they'll give them a better opportunity in the playoffs, that's a difficult offense to shut down as opposed to an offense that's waiting for somebody to hit a 3-run homer. So I guess we'll see how that plays out. But as somebody who's covered the Sox now for 8 years, it's a much different kind of team when you watch them day in and day out.
Pete Abraham right now from the Boston Globe helping us out on 104.5 The Team.
David Price is always so tough to figure out, whether it be between fans and media members. Has that relationship at all improved between Price and the media locally?
Well, it was only really a couple of people in the media, people who had kind of antagonized them a little bit. But in terms of, he's got to pitch well and everything else doesn't matter, and he's pitched well. That was one of his, I think, clearly his best start as a member of the Red Sox last night. His last 6 starts, he's got an ERA under 3.5. They've won most of the games that he started. That's all that really matters. Everything else, is sort of just peripheral noise and nonsense for the most part. So as long as he pitches well, I think a lot of that stuff just gets put in the back. And so far, that's what he's been able to do since coming back off the DL.
Pete Abraham with us, coming off of a 4-game series to start the season between the Yankees and the Sox. Now, I know you said the Rays are the real issue. The Yankees still 3.5 back. Are you at all shocked that the Yankees pitching seems to be able to rise to the occasion against the Red Sox?
Yeah, the Yankees pitching is sort of been unexpectedly. I don't know. I guess good is the word, but it's kind of weird too because Tanaka's had really great stretches and really terrible stretches. Sabathia's kind of come out of nowhere and had a career rejuvenation sort of season. They've done a really good job of bringing guys back and forth from AAA and filling in the gaps when they need to and getting production out of those guys. I think a lot of them, most Yankee fans wouldn't recognize them if they were walking down the street, but those guys, Ben Heller gave them some good innings in that long game on Saturday. Players like that have all of a sudden become these productive players for the Yankees. So I give Brian Cashman and Joe Girardi a lot of credit for being able to manipulate the roster the way they have. With the Yankees, you really got the impression in spring training that they looked at this as sort of a transition year and that Cashman would be ready to make even more trades come July if he had to, that he was preparing for that. Now you kind of wonder, he called them cautious buyers over the weekend. So it doesn't sound like they're going to go out and make a big move, but they could be in a position to try to supplement what they have and take a run at least a wild card, if not the division.
Boston Globe's Pete Abraham with us right now on your home for Yankees baseball. Now, Pete, a lot of people are arguing about whether or not the rivalry is still what it is. Aaron Judge has become the future face of baseball. Jackie Bradley Jr. steals a home run from him, and then he is the playful tweet back respect. Is the rivalry strong in Boston, or is that just something diehards like myself can't let go?
Well, when among the players, and just the players for both teams, I don't think there's the rivalry that there used to be when Veritek wanted to tear A-Rod's head off. I mean, it's nothing like that now. The players all seem to get along. There's really nobody on either team who's like a villainous kind of figure. I mean, who do what member of the Yankees would you dislike? And the same thing is kind of true of the Red Sox. So I think it's more with the fans and the media, but it's good for the rivalry. It's good for baseball when Aaron Judge shows up and when Mookie Betts is second in the MVP last year and when Chris Sale and David Price are pitching. That's good. And Fenway Park, I thought over the weekend had a lot more buzz for a Red Sox-Yankees game than I've heard in a long time, going back at least 3 or 4 years. And I think Judge had a lot to do with that. Every time he came up, he was booed, but he was booed in the way of, this is the best player on the other team. Let's boo him. Like Ellsbury gets booed because people can't stand him. I think Judge gets booed out of respect. And it's different. Jeter got booed that way. Jeter got booed differently than A-Rod got booed, if that makes any sense. So I think it's good to have a guy like Judge. I think it's good to have Gary Sanchez. I think it's good that Clint Frazier's around. All these good young players on both teams. I think that kind of lays the foundation for a lot of fun over the next 5 years.
It's good to have that type of back and forth, but the boos may get louder if there's an incident like we've seen in the past Yankees and Red Sox rivalry. From our perspective, it doesn't seem like Judge would be the instigator, though. I think those boos are going to be respectable.
And neither would Mookie Betts, and neither would Jackie Bradley, and none of those guys. And I kind of wonder what player. It would have to be some kind of secondary guy or somebody you would completely not expect perhaps to have something to happen. And in the past, it was always these veteran guys who had played against each other for so many years that there was a lot of, maybe not hatred, but certainly antagonism. And there's just nothing like that now. I mean, to see, it is kind of funny. You guys mentioned the going back and forth on Twitter. You would have never in a million years, right, back in the day thought, one of the Red Sox players complimenting one of the Yankee players or vice versa on Twitter. That's something you would have never seen. So it is, I think Judge looks at it like, hey, that's a good series against another good team. I don't think he looks at it like, man, I really hate the Red Sox because he grew up in California. Why does he hate the Red Sox?
Right. But once you put on that laundry, everybody it does seem to be a little bit of hatred. But Goz over here, Pete, he's a Baltimore fan and he loves Aaron Judge. Do the people of Boston love Aaron Judge a little bit?
Well, I don't think they love him, but I think they love the fact that there's this big, enormous power hitter coming up, and let's see what happens when he faces, Craig Kimbrell or David Price or Chris Sale. I think that's more interesting than, another player who you don't know too much about or, Chase Headley or somebody. I mean, I think it's more interesting to have a good, young, potential superstar player on the other team. You probably wish he was on your team, but, to me, I go back to when Derek Jeter played his last game, the Red Sox fans, cheered the heck out of him for that whole weekend and kind of showed the respect to Derek Jeter and the fact that they enjoyed watching him compete over all those years. I think the Red Sox fans, in a weird way, want the Yankees to be good because they're going to come into Fenway Park 8 or 9 times a year. It's interesting when they come in. It's more interesting than an interleague game or when the Toronto Blue Jays come in. So sure, you want the other team to be interesting to watch, and this Yankees team is getting pretty interesting to watch.
Pete Abraham of the Boston Globe, we appreciate you, man. And when they get back into it as the season goes on, we'd love to give you another call.
Yeah, anytime, guys. Thank you.